Hello friends and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about some very fast-paced, very fun books that will get you to the end of the year. Now, I do want to fully preface this by saying your Goodreads goal literally, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. What matters, my friends, okay, say it with me, is quality. I've been house sitting the last like 2 weeks, and now that I'm suddenly back home, I'm like, where's all of my stuff? What is happening? I'm talking words. What are the words? Sorry, I've had something in my eye all day, and my eye is just like rioting at the fact that it's still, there's a tree branch in there or something. I don't know. The idea of rushing and trying to speed through books in order to get to your Goodreads goal right at the very end of the year when things are already a little bit crazy is not something I would recommend. So whether you are genuinely looking for a handful of books just to kind of fill in a couple gaps in that Goodreads goal, or the main reasoning of this particular video is to talk about books that I have read that are short, fast-paced brain candy, things that I have finished very, very quickly, things that didn't necessarily require a lot of brain power to read, but also were still worth my time reading, especially as the holidays are very quickly approaching. Everyone's running around. We're running all over the place. We're wrapping presents. We're doing last-minute shopping. We're going to holiday parties. We're in and out all the time. We may or may not really have the brain capacity to read. I do want to also point out that the holidays can be very chaotic, very stressful, very emotional for people, and some people more so than others. One of the reasons that I love reading so much is that it is pure escapism for me. My brain just turns off and just like has a little experience that is completely good usually. And for me, one of my favorite ways to cope with all of the chaos in my life is just reading in its truest escapism form. And I feel like a lot of these books on this list, while they are shorter, and we're going to joke about meeting your Goodreads goal, all of these books that I'm going to talk about have been very good for me when my brain has been in that low brain mushy capacity. And I also fully recognize that escapism via reading is not a tactic that works for everyone. So if it does work for you, I hope this list is helpful. And if it's not like that for you, I hope you find some other cozy hobby that is immaculate for you. I hope you have a cozy hobby to fall back on, and if you don't, might I recommend, reading, maybe crocheting, or just, staring at the wall into the void and just like taking a nap. That also helps. I would be completely remiss if I did not start this video off with a certain book by the name of the Mind Of series. Now, you guys, I actually read this book to finish my Goodreads goal last year. This is technically a full series of 5 books, all wrapped up into one little bind up. The total page count is somewhere around 683 pages. However, this is the kind of 683 pages that you literally cannot put down, and then suddenly you've now read 5 books. This series is full of cliffhangers, and so as you finish the book you automatically have to go into the next one. But also the particular things that are happening in this book, you just can't put it down. Like, I personally binge read this in all of like a day and a half, and by a day and a half I mean like a 9 to 5 evening, day and a half kind of situation. I was so completely just put into a whole different dimension when I read the Mind Up series. I did just watch Sarah's vlog where she just read it, and I was just giggling the whole time that she was reading it. But she did also point out the fact that a lot of people will describe this as dark romance. It's not dark romance. It is a dark storyline. The romance itself in this book is honestly pretty, like, it's not like sweet, cute, fluffy, but like low-key it kind of is. But then you've got all of these really deep, dark, very traumatic elements that are happening around this person. So while this series isn't necessarily something that is completely brainless, it was completely brainful and heartful for me and heartbreaking for me. However, it was super compulsive to read, and I absolutely loved it. And it was something that really kept my attention, especially during this time of year when I'm kind of like all over the place. Things that keep my attention and let me truly just disassociate for a little bit are iconic, and this is solidly a good pick for that. So something that I desperately want to read before the year is over is Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. I have read the first 2 books being Done and Dusted, Slipped and Saddled, and I'm now on to Lost and Lassoed. This series is honestly perfect. Every single book in this series is just around the 300 page mark, so they're very quick in terms of the legitimate page count, but also in terms of the reading style itself. None of these books are too aggressively complex, while at the same time there is a little bit of depth to them, so it's not just truly like high service level brain candy situation. These are so much fun at the same time though. These books are just absolute silly, goofy, campy, cowboy romance fun time, while also being super short and fast paced and just like genuine fun. I read the first 2 books all in one sitting, and I'm assuming that I will also read Lost and Lassoed in one sitting. So whether you're needing to start the series from the beginning best of luck. Or if you're like me and you have one more book left in the series, this is a really great place to be. And to that effect, cowboy romance in general is just such silly, goofy, fun time. And I freaking love cowboy romance, especially from when my brain is just feeling a little mushy, okay? So to that effect, we always talk about the... Am I gonna hold up this whole series? Yeah, apparently I am. The Chestnut Springs series. If you've not already read Chestnut Springs... Might I introduce you to your new personality? We talk about Chestnut Springs so much that we don't necessarily very often talk about the Gold Rush Ranch series, which is technically Elsie Silver's first series. I love the series. When I finished Chestnut Springs, I picked up the series and immediately read this all within a work week again. So this is definitely something that you can get through pretty quickly, but you're not just getting through them. You are having your brain chemistry rewritten because Elsie Silver. These are a little bit longer, so if you're genuinely looking for something that is just a little bit shorter, I would go with Lila Sage in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, but if you have already read that, I would definitely recommend giving this a go. I would do a lot of things to completely forget all of Elsie Silver's books to be able to reread them for the first time again, because I would give a lot of things to be able to do that. Okay, so speaking of cowboy romance, we're gonna talk about a cowboy alien romance. I'd initially picked up Married to the Alien Cowboy because Tori had actually added book 2 to her Goodreads Want to Read list because Kitty at Spicy Cats Reads had recommended it to her. So I picked it up and I loved it. I think this book is like 280 pages or so, and I read it in all of a setting, but this book is just so stinking fun. You have got an alien on an alien planet trying to colonize a planet, and it's giving all the cowboy yeehaw goodness, while also giving all of the fun, quirky alienness. Like, it's not too alien. Like, if you're someone who's never tried an alien romance, it's a pretty good introduction to alien situations, especially if you do already like cowboy romance. So I would definitely recommend this series. There are a couple of them out at the moment, and they're on Kindle Unlimited, so when you're running around traveling for holidays, doing whatever, and you have a Kindle, you're good. Or if you even have your phone, I guess, technically, if you have your phone in Kindle Unlimited, you're good. So we went from cowboy romance to cowboy alien romance. Now we're just gonna go to straight up alien romance. Ice Planet Barbarians, like... Come on, we can't have a video about short, fast-paced books without talking about the queen of all short, fast-paced books. So Ice Planet Barbarians, there's about 1 million books in this series. So if you're wanting to pick it up from the beginning, obviously Ice Planet Barbarians, but then maybe you've read it before and you are in the middle of the series at some point, this is your reminder to pick it back up because they are so stinking fun. Okay? I feel like these books, they do... obviously are going to be spicy romances. Even if you skip past all the spice, I feel like a lot of the romance is well enough developed, and the storyline is so just like fun, quirky enough, and it's just very unhinged. The whole vibe of this time of year is just to have a holly jolly time. Might I recommend a holly jolly time. This series also has the added benefit of everyone talks about it. If you have never read it before and you're kind of curious about what the girlies are talking about, this is the perfect time of year to pick it up. So speaking of a book that I feel like a lot of people were talking about, The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee, I read the first book and I really loved the beginning of it. The ending, I was kind of like, okay, whatever. I ended up giving it a 4-star, but I believe it's like a 200-page novella situation. I have not read book 2, and while I've not heard the best of reviews on that, if you're someone who, like me, who feels like if you're gonna spend the time reading, we might as well read books that are on our TBRs. If this book happened to be on your TBR, let me just remind you, it is a short one. It is very fast paced. I read it in all of maybe 4 hours, honestly, so I would recommend this one. So the background for how we're picking up all of these books right now is that I went through my Goodreads challenges from this year, 2023 and 2022, I think, and just screenshotted all the things that I thought might be kind of applicable. The things that I read in one sitting, things that were genuinely just short. We're going to go ahead and talk about this one real quick. This is technically book 2 in this series, but Hassab and Blood by Alexis L. Menard. I read this book in all of a sitting. I had initially picked this book up because of my Reading Booktubers Favorites video. It was a recommendation of Cass at Covers with Cassidy. So, first of all, thank you, Cass, because you kind of changed my life with that one. Second of all, this book, I read it in 2 sittings technically, but Cass, she read it in 1 sitting. It is over the 400-page mark, so it's not necessarily the shortest, but the audiobook in this is so freaking good. I love the audiobook for this one. So if you're running around shopping, doing errands, this might be a really good one to pick up. Again, it is a little bit longer, but also it is so good. So I don't think you would lose in either direction if you picked up this one. So speaking of books that I've read for videos, I wanted to go ahead and quickly talk about Angel's Blood and Dark Fever. Both of these books are around the 300-page mark. I feel like these would be good, quick and easy things that, again, people have been talking about a lot more recently. So they may or may not already be on your TBR, and if they are, I liked both of these. Archangel's Blood, which is the first book in the Guild Hunter series. This whole series, I know Tori got the audiobooks off of Everand. All of my audiobooks were available in the Audible Plus library when I had read them, so I'd recommend checking out Audible for these. But the audiobooks are very, they were done a very long time ago, and they very much so give the nostalgic, backlist fantasy feeling, which is also kind of a vibe. So I would recommend looking into this one as well as Dark Fever. Dark Fever is a little bit more dark and a little bit more fantasy. So this might not be the best of recommendations, but I'm gonna throw them out there anyways. To that effect, I read Burn For Me in the same vlog. I only grabbed this because this is up there right next to it. I'm someone who loves a good slow burn, and this book is still only 340 pages, I think. 350 pages. But if you feel like whenever you read these shorter, fast-paced books that it's too insta-lovey for you, might I recommend this one. What do we have left? Oh, the book that literally everyone is going to have on their list for fast-paced, compulsively bingeable reading. Butcher and Blackbird. Okay. I read this book in an afternoon. It was fantastic. I would love to pick up Leather and Lark sooner rather than later, but I have not read this one. This one I have read. I am very, very curious. I think I kind of have to be in more of a mood to read this one because the trigger warnings, I already picked it up and I was like, okay, wait. But Butcher and Blackbird, you kind of just go into it. Look at the trigger warnings, obviously, and make sure that those are not going to be triggering to you. But don't read too much into them. Just kind of let the story like happen, and it'll happen, and it'll be a happening. So if you haven't already read this one, let me just, but then also if you really like this one, maybe look into this one too. A Concept. Okay, I'm not someone who's really a Christmas holiday romance person because I just feel like they're not as, they just don't tend to stick around with me very well. Love Light Farms is one that I did read and did really like. So if you are looking for something that is a festive moment, maybe you could have a festive moment. Okay, so I have two more recommendations. And the second to last one being so stinking good. A lot of people have been talking about Lights Out by Noah Allen. If you have not already read Lights Out, girl. This again... Okay, so this book is very spicy, so if you are out and about and you don't want to be listening to spice, maybe knock this off your list. However, there are parts in this book that are so funny, and I would fully recommend, if you're at all curious in this book, do not waste your time reading it physically. Listen to the audiobook. The narrators do such a good job, but also the style of this story and the little sidebar jokes that they have in this book. Audiobook, okay? I listened to this again in an afternoon and I was completely just like obsessed with this. So I would definitely recommend listening to this one, especially if you're someone who maybe you're having to clean the house, maybe you're having to wrap the presents. You need an audiobook. Lights Out. Okay, so the last recommendation that I have is actually quote unquote it's not really a series of books, but it is a certain author, and that's going to be none other than Freida McFadden. This year I ended up reading The Boyfriend, The Housemaid, and I just read Never Lie. And then last year I read The Inmate. Hers are fairly lower plot. They're not as brain capacity requiring, but they're still fun. Now having read 4 of them, I obviously have only read the 4 of them, but I feel like I can speak to the fact that Freida McFadden as an author is a good author where you can kind of just like pick their books at random and just kind of like pick what sounds interesting to you at the moment, and you more than likely are gonna have at least a pretty decent time. I usually listen to audiobooks at about 1.8 speed, but even if you listen to these at like 1.5, a lot of these books are going to be done and over in 4 hours. So let's say you are sitting down to wrap presents or you're sitting down to clean the house and you maybe don't want spice or something that if for some reason there were other people around, you wouldn't feel like weird listening to while there were other people running around. I think a Freida McFadden audiobook could be a really good option. My favorite so far is definitely The Boyfriend, which still is like so shocking to me that that's my favorite of the 4, but I really love The Boyfriend. And then I think in particular Never Lie is honestly the perfect book to read this time of year. It is they got snowed in at a house kind of thing, and then some weird stuff starts happening, and I was really glad that I read it at this time of year. So if you're picking up any Freida McFadden, I would probably say Never Lie. If you're wanting to feel a little bit festive, I would recommend that as an option. Those are all the books that I pulled very quickly and very rapid fire randomness. Who even knows what's happening anymore, because we're like 8 days what day is today, even days into BOOKMAS? I don't even know anymore. So if you have any better recommendations, please leave them down below, whether they are short, super fast paced books, whether they're things that you binged very quickly, because I am itching for a good binge read and I'm very curious to see what book will serve that purpose for me. If you've made it this far into the video, go ahead and leave the orange emoji because at book club the other night, one of my friends, Bree, she made everyone the little simmer pots and I'm so excited to whip this sucker out. Thank you, Bree. Honestly, she pulled this out of her bag of goodies and we were like, it's so cute. I'm so excited. I've actually never done a simmer pot, so will it burn my house down? Maybe. Will it smell good before it burns down? Hopefully. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night or holiday season, wherever you are, and I will catch you in the next one.